Hi there, my name is Olivia and I am a team leader in the Global Learning team. And today I'm talking to you about exploring overseas study options in Europe. So, this session is designed to get you thinking about what the different opportunities are in Europe and answering rather some questions that are often asked by students when they're thinking about studying overseas. So, why should you study overseas? There are many different reasons, but when we think about the academic benefits to studying overseas, we can, by studying in another context, in another culture, in another country where they may not speak English as their first language, you get to gain an international perspective on the things that you're studying. You get to experience a different academic system. You may get to learn a new language. And you might get access to subjects that aren't ordinarily taught at Melbourne or in Australia in general. In terms of the personal reasons, as for studying overseas, you get to experience another culture, meet new people, make new friends, gain independence, push yourself out of your comfort zone, travel and explore. One of the things that most students that study overseas do is, of course, traveling beyond just the city or the town that they're studying in. And particularly in Europe, our students ordinarily will utilize their weekends to do all sorts of travel across Europe. Studying overseas also gives you an incredible booster in terms of your employability skills. You get to build international links and expand your networks that are beyond just Melbourne and Australia, but also across the world. You gain a competitive edge on other graduates when you're able to talk about your overseas study experiences when you're applying for graduate positions or new roles, because not only does studying overseas give you an academic advantage, it also gives you some really tangible examples of resilience and being able to adapt in new environments, which a lot of employers look for in their new recruits. You will be developing your skills as well if you do combine your overseas study program with an internship, working overseas, or volunteering. Okay, so the quick facts on Europe. It's got an incredibly large population with over 742 million. Its largest city is Moscow. The highest point is Mount Elbrus in Russia. The lowest point is Caspian. And Europe is the second smallest continent in the world after Australia. So it's pretty big. We've got over 68 partner institutions in 16 countries across Europe. So here we've just got a bit of an example of some of the different options, from Belgium to Czech Republic, Estonia, France, Germany, Italy, Lithuania, the Netherlands, Spain, Switzerland, and Turkey. So we can confidently say that if you are considering Europe as a destination, we will most likely have a partner that will be able to meet both your personal desire needs, but also your academic requirements. So finding subjects that will work with you in your studies at Melbourne. So what kind of programs can you do? So if you do, you can do a short-term program, which is usually worth 1 or 2 subjects worth at Melbourne, and you can study these in the January or the summer period, but also in the July period. We have short-term programs that we run through our partners directly. So, for example, there is a summer program in both Milan at Cattolica and at LMU in Germany. But we also partner with third-party providers who give our students access to other short-term programs in all sorts of parts of Europe, including, for example, Estonia and Greece. Similarly, the University of Melbourne has its own subjects that they do teach overseas. So a couple of examples of this is in the heart of the Loire Valley, contemporary Italy. These are run through the Faculty of Arts, and you would enrol into these subjects as you normally would a University of Melbourne subject. Of course, the other option, which you may be considering, is a full semester exchange program. So Can I study in English? This is a really common question that we're asked for students that are considering studying um, anywhere that is not English speaking. So the answer is yes. Most partner institutions offer subjects taught in English and the native language. It's always a good idea to check the special conditions tab on our website just to double check to see whether you do require some kind of proficiency in the native language. Some universities have limited subjects in English, and so in this particular case, you need to be researching the types of subjects that you would be studying to ensure that there is an adequate number of subjects in English. Be prepared to know or understand at least some of the language of the host country that you will stay in. This isn't because necessarily you need to be studying in that language, but it's going to give you a better cultural immersion, and it's also going to give you, I guess, a good idea, and it will help you in terms of buying your coffee, organizing, asking for directions, organizing a taxi to the airport, and it will really enhance the experience that you're having. Not all pre-semester language courses can be credited back to your degree if there are some language courses provided by your program. However, we do recommend that if you're interested, these can be a really good way to set up a semester exchange or a short-term program by kickstarting it by learning the language in an intensive language course. Okay, so what do you need to know about European institutions? Some of them tend to have later application cycles, in particular Germany. So you just need to be aware of, once you've applied to the University of Melbourne, what are the application requirements for you in terms of applying to that host institution? Now, we as the Global Learning team do help you through that process, but just be aware of when the semester dates are for the country and the host institution that you're looking at. You can normally find these really easily by just Googling the name of the host institution and then writing key semester dates. Some countries might require you to purchase health or social security insurance in the country on top of the University of Melbourne insurance. You should also be aware of the equivalent credit load to your host institution. So that is found on the brochure pages for each of our partner institutions on our website. You may also need to consider housing options. Some cities won't have on-campus accommodation, or it will be only on-campus accommodation. So you need to be doing this type of research and thinking really carefully about what kind of accommodation and living arrangements you would like to see out of your overseas study experience. So here's a snapshot of Megan's experience, and she went to LMSU in Russia. So here is just a few tips from Megan. She says on accommodation, it's going to cost roughly 200 Australian dollars per semester, depending on which sector you're placed in on campus. Moscow has a huge amount of private rooms for rent, which are a little more expensive than the dormitories and can range in price from 400 Aussie dollars per month. So as you can see, it is going to vary based on what kind of accommodation you'd be interested in. It's also going to vary across countries and cities. For example, if you go to a big city in a country, you might find that that's going to be more expensive than going to a smaller city. Megan says about university events that Russian Speaking Club meets weekly on Wednesday evenings in one of the sectors and then heads to the local favourite bar for more socialising. So she encourages you to get involved in that kind of activity so that you can be making friends and really, again, having that cultural immersion. She's also got a few tips here on the local cuisine. Okay, so funding and scholarships. So there are a number of scholarships that are both externally funded and funded by the university to help support overseas study. It depends on where you go, how long you go for, and what type of program you get. But there are some options here. I'll discuss with you quickly. The Melbourne Global Languages Scholarship is offered through the School of Languages. So if you are studying a language, it's a good idea to have a look at that and see whether or not you're eligible. And the Melbourne Mobility Awards are for students that are participating in an overseas study program for credit and range between $1,000 and $6,000. Thank you for listening. If you do have more questions, please book an appointment with us via the Stop One workshops and appointments website, and would be happy to talk to you more about your upcoming overseas study program.